My wife chose her phone over me for months. It started slowly, the kind of change you might overlook at first. A chuckle here, a smile there, her face glowing not from the lamp beside her, but from the screen in her hands. I'd be sitting just a few feet away in our living room, the television murmuring in the background, and she'd be lost in another world entirely. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone spends too much time on their phone these days, I told myself. Maybe she was texting her friends from work. Maybe catching up on a group chat. But then I noticed how her whole body language shifted whenever a notification buzzed. She'd curl into the couch like a teenager would crush, fingers flying over the keys, her lips pressed together as if holding in laughter until the punchline arrived. And then came the giggles, the kind of unguarded laughter I hadn't heard from her in years. Not directed at me, not shared with me, just her in the glow of a tiny screen. I sat there night after night, invisible in my own home. I tried to talk, tried to break through the haze, but her answers became shorter, distracted, almost impatient. Uh-huh. Yeah. Sure. Words tossed at me like crumbs while she feasted on whatever secret joy came from those text bubbles. I reminded myself of our history. 15 years together, the quiet routines we had built, the storms we had weathered. Surely this was just a phase. Surely she'd put the phone down eventually and look at me the way she used to. But the weeks stretched into months, and the distance between us grew so thick I could feel it pressing on my chest. One evening, I finally caught a glimpse of a name on the screen. A man's name, not a co-worker I knew, not a family friend. Just a name I had never heard before, attached to a stream of messages that made her giggle so hard she had to cover her mouth. When she noticed me looking, she tilted the phone away, like a teenager caught breaking curfew. Something inside me cracked. I asked, calmly at first, who he was. She shrugged it off, just a friend. I pressed, and she rolled her eyes, saying I was overreacting. You're paranoid, she snapped, clutching the phone like it was oxygen. And then, with a smirk that burned into me, she said, not everything is about you. This is growth. Growth. That was the word she used. As though giggling with strange men while ignoring the husband sitting beside her was some kind of evolution. As though disrespecting our marriage, our vows, could be spun into a self-help buzzword. Growth. I remember the exact moment I decided I couldn't keep swallowing it. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, her fingers tapping out another late-night message, her laughter rising and falling like a song written for someone else. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. Not anymore, I said, my voice low but steady. She didn't even flinch. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't put the phone down. She just laughed, as if I had made a harmless joke, and repeated that word again, growth. The contempt in her laughter felt like acid in my veins. It wasn't just a cheating, the emotional affair, the secrecy, the giggles meant for someone else. It was a complete dismissal of me, of us, of everything we had built together. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stood up, walked into the bedroom, and stared at the packed suitcases in my mind. Over the next few days, I moved like a man half awake, half alive. I went to work at the law firm, argued cases, shook hands, smiled when I needed to, but inside, I was planning my exit. I called a colleague I trusted, a lawyer who had seen the same pain in other men's eyes, and I laid it all out. The texts, the laughter, the indifference. He didn't need me to explain much. Betrayal has a language of its own, one we both understood without words. At home, the distance widened into silence. She stopped pretending to hide her phone. She stopped pretending at all. If anything, she seemed emboldened, as though daring me to confront her. And maybe that was the worst part. Not the cheating itself, but the utter lack of remorse, the way she stood on the ashes of our marriage and called it growth. When I finally told her I wanted a divorce, she barely reacted. No tears, no fight, no apology. Just another shrug, another glance at the screen in her hands. It was as though I had been replaced long before I found the courage to say the words. In the weeks that followed, I mourned, not for her, but for the man I had been, the man who waited patiently, who believed laughter shared with others was harmless, who thought loyalty meant something more than convenience. That man had been ignored into silence, laughed into invisibility. But with the pain came clarity. I began to rebuild, one small step at a time. I took long walks alone, rediscovering the quiet joy of being present in the world without someone's shadow darkening it. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected, people who actually looked me in the eye when we spoke. I went to the gym, not to punish myself, but to reclaim myself. And slowly, the laughter returned. My laughter, not the brittle kind that covered wounds, but the real, unguarded kind that comes from freedom. She had chosen her phone, her so-called growth, her secret conversations, and I had chosen to walk away. Looking back now, I realize her betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a harder, sharper, truer chapter. Betrayal doesn't just break you, it forces you to see. And once you see, you can't unsee. She may still be laughing at her phone, but I'm no longer sitting beside her, waiting for a glance that will never come. I'm out in the world again, laughing on my own terms, living on my own terms. And that, I know now, is my growth.